Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm very excited for today's video. I have yet another dedicated palette review video for you, and today I have the Makeup by Mario's Ethereal Eyes Nature palette to test and review for you. I have two looks that I will be doing with this palette. I actually did buy this palette the day that it launched. I did my two looks like right away, but then I never filmed the introduction, and a couple other palettes came out that I was like reviewing right at the same time. And then life just got away from me, and I was considering not posting this video at all, but I already did the two looks, and I figured in case you're interested in just some more inspiration behind this palette or just want to hear my thoughts on it, I want to share it with you. I also have been a huge hater of the original Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette, so wanted to give you guys my updated thoughts on his newest palette. I did not buy the second one he came out with, the blue one, because I was so disappointed in the second one, but I could not deny the color story in this one. So I did end up buying this. I do have this is the fourth look I have on today. I only have my foundation on my nose. My nose has been running like crazy. I did not film the look that I have on today. I filmed two looks, but this is the fourth look that I've actually created with this palette, and I've been, spoiler, so pleased with every look that I have created. So if you're interested in hearing just a little bit more about this palette, my thoughts on it, as well as seeing me create two looks, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like palette themed content like this, or just hanging out and chit-chatting about makeup, that is what we do over on this channel, so I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. All right, you guys, this is the packaging that the palette comes in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this cute little like Mario signature with the heart is a new addition, but I could also be very wrong on that. And then obviously, as I just was holding up, this is what the actual palette looks like. Mine is a little dirty right now. And then we have the inside of the palette, which looks like this. This palette is described as being inspired by the power of nature's seasonal renewal, with 12 universal neutrals and 4 finishes to create ultimate and versatile looks. I want to start out by saying I bought the Ethereal Eyes palette, the first one that ever launched. Not the like re-release, like I bought it right away, and I was so excited about that palette. And my issue with the original launch, I'm gonna put this down for a minute. My issue with the original launch was that I felt like, specifically with the mattes, they were really powdery and almost like too blendable. And I found that whenever I was using more than like 1 to 2 mattes, like if I was using 2 or more mattes, my looks just were kind of like blending away into nothing. I felt like they were muddying up. And at the time, I was definitely I was like just starting to get into indie shadow, just starting to like have a love affair for indie. So my looks definitely typically consisted of a lot more eyeshadow per look. And I think if I were to have that palette today, maybe I probably still would feel frustrated by the mattes, but I think I might like the palette or have a better appreciation for the palette now, because I am liking something a little bit more twinkly on the eyes, maybe a little bit lighter. I know today we're very dramatic, at least about as dramatic, I feel like, as you can go with this palette. But I, especially for like work days, have been opting for something a lot lighter than I typically have in the past. So I was really skeptical when buying this palette, because I was like, am I gonna have the same issues with the mattes? I like to use typically a minimum of like, I would say at least 3 mattes, usually 3 to 4 mattes, and then I love to do something all over the lids. I love indie, so I do like a very high shine, metallic, punchy, fun, special shade all over the lid, whether that be like a super metallic shade, a duochrome, but I definitely have been liking something a little bit more sparkly and twinkly this year, so I wanted to give this a try. I do love greens, and I thought that the mattes, like I did like the selection of mattes. I'm not always the biggest pink lover, but I felt like even this more rosy tone shade read more of like a dusty sort of pink, which is something that I can really get on with. So I decided to give it a go. I wanted to see what I thought about this launch. Because I am posting this a little bit later, I'm sure you guys have seen this. I'm sure you know it retails for $68. I did order mine off of the Sephora site. I know the VIB sale is coming up, so if you want to get it for a discount, it might be a good time to buy. Rather than insert, like sometimes I'll just like insert swatches, but I think I'm just gonna swatch here and describe, I'll tell you what the description of each of the shades. So the way that these are named is it goes EE, oh my gosh, EEN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on and so forth. So starting with EEN 1, this is a satin and it's described as a satin sheen. So there is that swatched right there. A really beautiful lighter shade. This really is kind of a lid setting shade for me. I will say it is kind of this like matte satin with like a glitter, but that glitter almost seems to be, it's not really an overspray, but I've never noticed like glitter particles on my face when using this shade. And I've used this shade, I believe, in all 4 of the looks that I've created. I just use it to kind of clean everything up and kind of blend out at the top. It's also a really beautiful, like more matte, yet it's a satin inner corner highlight, and I actually really enjoy that shade. Then we have EN2 here, which is described as a shimmering peach champagne. I don't know, should I turn my lights down? I'm like, the sun is also setting, so it's like, it's just that time of day that I probably shouldn't have decided to film at this time. Should I zoom in? There it is. Maybe it's not the best. Maybe it's not the best swatch. I think of all the shades, honestly, this shade might be my least favorite. I'm not always like the biggest yellow gold lover. Like, I love a yellow, but like this is more of a yellow gold, and this is one of those shades that's like, it's definitely in my, like, it's a very weak shimmer in my opinion, and it's not like, it has a bit of a twinkle to it when you put it on the lid, but it's definitely not my personal favorite shade out of the palette. Then we move on to the 3rd shade in the palette, and this is described as a shimmering taupe. I've really enjoyed using this. What I like about this is right there, it kind of swatch, kind of a weak swatch, but on the lids, I feel like this does offer like that taupey base pigment with a beautiful kind of sparkle to it. And I feel like it has a bit of, while it is a taupe, I feel like it has almost like, it's almost like a taupey green. So I feel like it really does help pull together. Like when I did a look with these 2 shades right here using this green look, I feel like it really helped to kind of tie that green in. I don't remember if that's the one I filmed or not, or if I did green and this, but anyway, I have really enjoyed this shade. Then we have a matte shade next to that, and this is described as a matte warm beige, and it is a very, very soft matte shade. This stupid fly has been bothering me for days. I like can't get it. There it is, swatched right there. I'm sorry, I feel like this is like kind of hard to swatch this way, so if it's not the best for single swatches, I apologize. Moving on to the 5th shade here, this is described as a matte dusty rose, and I have really enjoyed this. I actually reached for this one day that I wore to work, and I literally just wore this shade like in my crease, and it worked perfectly for me because I haven't been self-tanning. Honestly, like I'm more cool complected, so sometimes for like a one shadow in the crease and done, something that has a little bit more like pink tones to it is definitely more flattering. And I did kind of do a heavy swatch here, but this is definitely something that you can really sheer out to not be as intense in the crease, and I actually really enjoy this matte shade. Shade 6 here is described as a shimmering rose gold, and again, I feel like the swatches maybe kind of swatch, that one not so much, kind of swatch, I would say like weak, especially if you're into indie, but there's something about like the base pigment and the way that the sparkle just like sparkles on top. It truly is so pretty. This is another shade that I really, really love from the palette. Then we have the green in the palette, and this is described as a shimmering olive green. And this, I feel like, again, kind of a weak swatch, but on the lids, I actually feel like this is such a beautiful shade. It kind of reminds me of the green from the Bronze Seduction palette from Pat McGrath, but this one is a little bit more olive in tone. But again, it's something about like the sparkle, the way that the like glitter sparkles. Oh, it's just, it truly is so beautiful on the lids. Then we have the 8th shade, which is described as a matte camel brown, excuse me. There is that. This is another really beautiful kind of one shade in your crease too. It also works really well to blend with other shades, but this is like one of my perfect, like what I would consider like a perfect matte brown. Moving on to the 9th shade down here, this is described as a matte neutral medium brown. Again, really soft shade, but I found that these are really easy to blend but they aren't as blendable as I remember the first Etherealized palette being, and in my opinion that's a good thing. Like the other one like almost was too blendable where it would literally blend away into nothing. Then we have 10, which is described as a shimmering golden bronze. I love this shade. Honestly, this might be my favorite shade. I don't know, I've really, like every time I've reached into this, I've just like wanted to reach for this shade. I just love the way that this looks on the lid. It has this kind of like wet, glassy like shine. It truly, when they described whatever like the pearls, the imparted pearls that create a reflective wet like shine on the lid, I truly do feel like I get that. And it's just like one of those palettes that like the sparkly shadows just make you feel like pretty. Do you know what I mean? Like I just feel pretty when I've done looks with this palette. Then we have shade 11, which is described as a metallic bronze burgundy. And I actually really enjoyed this shade too. There is that one swatched. And this I actually feel like is a pretty good metallic. I like that we have kind of a deeper metallic that you can kind of put in the outer corner of the lids if you want to try and like tie the look together. Like sometimes if you have, I don't know, sometimes I feel like my looks look a little bit piecey and I need like a darker metallic or a darker satin shimmer sort of shade to kind of like bring everything together on the lids or like cohesively make the lids look cohesive. I really like the shade. I was surprised because I didn't think, like, this isn't necessarily right up my alley typically, but I actually really like that shade as well. And then finally, the 12th and final shade in the palette is described as a matte mahogany brown. And I have found that this is a really nice dark brown. I feel like it blends really nicely, it builds really nicely, it allows you to deepen up a look, which is really nice. I don't feel like it muddies up with any of the other shades. I don't feel like it blends away into nothing, and I'm very happy with that shade too. So I think I've made myself pretty clear that I actually am so impressed with this palette. I thought that this was going to be one that I film a video, test it out, and then like am passing this one along to my sister or one of the girls that I work with, because I honestly was expecting not to like this palette. Like I really was going into this buying it to do a review and thinking that like I would have a different opinion from most because I didn't like the original Etherealized and so many people did. But I feel like some people have been disappointed in this one, and I actually am of the opposite of that. Like I'm so glad that I bought this. This may rank up there in one of my favorite palettes of the year. I will also say this is definitely more up my alley for what I have been craving in terms of just eyeshadow this year. Like this just is suiting my current like makeup aesthetic. It's suiting the vibes that I've been going for. So I am obviously very happy with this palette, but let's get into the two looks that I have created using this palette. All right, you guys, we are here for the first look. I will say I'm filming this in the afternoon, and the sun, just like the way it hits my window sometimes in the afternoon, is a little bit weird. So if the lighting gets a little funky, I apologize. But we're here to do the first look using the new Makeup by Mario Nature palette. I'm nervous. I'm nervous for this because I was really disappointed in the original Makeup by Mario Etherealized. I felt like the mattes were extremely powdery and just did not, like, if you had like more than two mattes blended together, I just feel like they didn't blend together. So we'll see, we'll see. I did not buy the palette last year, as I mentioned, and so I just, you know, we're gonna find out if it works. I obviously am very curious to dig into the green, but I'm kind of even more curious about this metallic. So I think we're gonna try and do something with like these shades. I'm gonna start out by dipping into this shade right here, and that would be shade, oh my gosh, EEN5. Definitely getting like a bit of powder. I like, honestly, like, it's been so long since I've used the original Etherealized, because I think that was not last year, not the year before that, but the year before that, because I got it when it like first released, and then the next year he like, I think it was the next year, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe he re-released it last year in the beginning of the year and then released the cooler tone palette in the fall. I don't really remember, but I feel like it's been so long since I used that palette. Okay, off of first impressions with the first matte shadow that we're using, I like the tone. I feel like this is like the perfect kind of pinky taupe sort of shade for like a one shadow and done, which I will not lie, this year I've kind of been into something super simple on the lids. So a one shadow and done, you know, I could be persuaded into it being a really useful palette then. I feel like it's blending well as well. I'm gonna build a little bit more up and just try and like really blow this into the crease as well. I actually feel like I'm gonna try and do a little bit more of a dramatic look with this one, just because that's what I remember from the original, is like you really couldn't do a dramatic look because it just did not, the shades just didn't blend well together. I think that's a very beautiful matte shade though. And I forgot to mention, I did set my eyes prior to going in with shadow using the Ulta Beauty Longwear Matte Eyeshadow Primer, which does have a bit of pigment to it. That is like my go-to eyeshadow primer. Again, I don't remember a lot from the original, but I feel like off of first impressions of this first shadow, I'm pleasantly surprised or happy, just like based off my memory of the first. I just feel like I remember the shadows being so powdery and kind of just like blending away into nothing. But I really like that shade. I do want to go for a bit of a dramatic look. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm going to go in with the dark brown here, the dark brown matte. It's the shade EEN12. And I'm going to take my Singe Beauty EO1 because I just want to pack this into, okay, tapping that off. I always also like to mention, I typically do my eyeshadow first, so I don't typically care about fallout. Obviously, I've done my makeup first for the sake of today's video, so I want to be a little bit more careful. When I tapped my brush off, it did seem like there was a lot tapping off. But I'm just gonna tap that into the outer corner and just try and pack that in. But like really focusing it just on that outer bit of my lid. And then I'll dip back into that same matte shade and blend those two together. Let's see how these blend together. Because this is where we really struggled with the original, is like getting more than two shadows to blend together. I feel like I maybe have like a little bit of patchiness on the outer part of my lid here, but I also feel like this is the second look I've done today. I was wrapping up my testing process with the ABH Embers palette earlier, and I feel like my eyes are just like not the most pleased with me. Okay, those are blending together better than I remember my blending of togetherness with my original. So far, not mad. Obviously, it's lightening up that darker shade some. I don't know if I want to build it a ton. So I'm gonna go in and do the other eye, or try and match the other eye here. I am happy with the way that those two blended together. Much better than I remember from the first time around. I'm gonna try, just because I'm curious, I'm gonna try and add a little bit more of the dark brown. And obviously I'll go back in and blend that too. Just wanna see how much deeper a second packing of shadow and then obviously blending will get us. Okay, when I'm layering back over top with the like first shadow I went in with, I feel like that's really taking a lot of the dark brown pigment away, which you may like or not like depending on how you like to build your shadows, but I wouldn't necessarily say, like, I feel like if you really wanted a ton of pigment, maybe you'd really have to pack it on and blend it differently. I don't know if I'm making any sense. But these two are still layering together a lot nicer than I remember with my original. Okay, I'm gonna stop right here. I do actually like the way that those two blended together. This is going a lot better than I anticipated it was going to, just if there hadn't been, you know, updates to the palette. And I feel like a lot of people, I actually feel like a lot of people really liked the Ethereal Eyes palette. And I feel like a lot of people really liked the palette he launched last year. I will also note, I purchased his like Master Mattes, the Warm Neutral palette this year, and I was pretty underwhelmed with the quality in that palette. I just felt like there was a lot of very dusty shadows in that. So I really was not going into this with high expectations at all. I have the NYX glitter glue all over my lids, and I am someone who likes to use my fingers when applying metallic or shimmers. And I think I am gonna do that. Oftentimes when I'm doing a review style video like this, I'll still use a brush, but I honestly feel like, especially like the more ethereal shadows, I feel like they're gonna apply best with a finger. However, actually I do wanna go in with this metallic down here, and I will use a brush for that. So I'm just using my foiled, like an old Makeup Geek shadow, and I'm wondering, I feel like I should spray my brush with this one. So I'm gonna pick up some of EEN 11, like that, and I'm gonna spray this one with my MAC Fix Plus. And this I'm gonna focus on the outer third of my lid. Okay, that is a really beautiful shade. I am noticing quite a bit of fallout though with that one. Mer. Who else in their life still like merps? That's from Jersey Shore, right? I do that all the time at work, and one of the like younger girls that I work with was like, why do you make that noise? And I was like, you've never merped before? Does anyone else merp? Or does anyone else like remember merping? I feel like in college, and that was like Jersey Shore prime, like my roommates and I would do it all the time at one another. I hope I'm not alone and you guys don't think I'm crazy. Okay, I really like that shade and the way that this is going. So same thing on this lid. I think that that is a gorgeous shade. Lots of fallout though. I will say, based off of the 3 shades that I've used from this palette so far, I'm not thinking it's going to be an instant declutter like I thought it might be. Now that we have that all over the lid, I am going to go in with this shade right here. This is EEN 6, I believe, and I'm just gonna take that on my finger, like so. Tap that across the lid. I'm noticing like a very stark contrast here. So I don't know, we're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. And this is definitely more of one of the like the ethereal shades. It definitely has like almost like a rose gold base, but some really beautiful sparkle, or yeah, sparkle throughout. Okay, I'm not mad at that, but I also went in with the expectation knowing that this palette is not supposed to be like a special indie palette. Like it literally is etherealized, so we shouldn't be expecting it to pack like the biggest punch. I'm curious about taking that same shade on a brush. I'm just wondering if actually a brush is gonna be better. I actually think that's really pretty. I'm just gonna take a little bit more of EEN 11, that metallic shade, and I'm gonna actually bring that in farther, and we're really gonna get dramatic here, but I feel like it needed that to kind of mesh everything kind of together. It was like too stark of a contrast there for a moment. Dipping back into the lighter shade we're using and blending that back over. Okay, I think that's actually gorgeous. I actually kind of love this. I think this is so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna repeat what I did with this eye. So I'm gonna start by going in with a finger. So much fallout from that metallic shade, you guys. Be warned. Okay, then bringing the metallic in a little farther. Shoot, I didn't tap my brush off. Probably gonna get a lot of fallout. And then going back in with the lighter shade. I'm gonna add some liquid liner to the upper lash line. So I'm going in with my Lawless Caviar liquid liner. I will say I've definitely been into something a little bit more simple on the eyes. Not that this is necessarily simple, but I could see this maybe turning into a good everyday palette for me, which makes me happy. Because I will honestly say, I bought this for science. Like I really wanted to know if I was gonna feel differently about this one than I did the first one. But I was going in with the expectation that I should stop talking while I do liner. I really was going in with the expectation that I was not gonna like this palette. Like I really was going in with that expectation. So I'm pleasantly surprised right now. I am going to, I wonder if I have like a plummy shade for the waterline. I don't know if I do, I'm gonna check. Okay, I do not have a plum or really a purple of any kind for my waterline. So I'm just gonna go in with my Ilia eyeliner in the shade Dusk. which is just a dark brown. I believe Makeup by Mario maybe does have like a plum color in his eyeliners. I haven't tried them, but I've heard amazing things. So maybe I'll pick up during the Sephora sale. Maybe I would pick up like a plum liner because clearly I don't have one. For the lower lash, I'm gonna take the metallic, and actually I'm gonna spray my brush just because there is so much fallout with this one. I'm gonna stamp this along the lower lash line. And then I actually wanna go in with something a little bit lighter. I think I'm gonna take this more like yellow gold shade, and I'm gonna take it on a pencil brush. And I'm just gonna drag that along that first third of the lower lash, just to add a little bit of a little brightness. I actually think I'm gonna take this yellow gold shade, the EE-N2, and I'm gonna bring that into my inner corner too, for my inner corner shade. I'm gonna add mascara quickly. I'm gonna go in with my e.l.f. Incredicurl, and I'm gonna add mascara, and then I think we're gonna be done with the first look, and I am so happy with this. I feel like this is such a fun fall eyeshadow look. You guys, I don't know if it's just the foundation or the foundation and powder I use today. I like cannot decide if I like the Say pressed powder or not. I cannot decide. Okay, I'm gonna add some lips and we'll be back with a final look. Let me, hold on, I'll do a close-up quickly before we zoom out. I actually am so pleased with this look. I'm so pleasantly surprised. But you guys will have to let me know what you think. For a nice, like, dramatic, yes, like, I mean, it was really simple. I'm, like, actually so happy with this. Okay, I'm gonna add a lip and I'll be right back. Okay, you guys, this is my final look. My final first look with the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Nature Palette. And I have to say, I am so pleasantly surprised and pleased with this. I really love this matte shadow. Like, I feel like this is like one of those matte shadows that just stands out in my mind as like, I can see myself reaching into this day to day just for like a little bit of depth and dimension in the crease. Like if I just want to fly out the door with just one shade. Similar to Smarty Pants from Tartelette and Bloom. So perhaps this palette will get a pass and get to say for that matte alone. But I love the way that this looked. I love the sparkle in this shade. Maybe I went into it with the right expectations this time, just knowing that obviously this is not going to be giving me like Bella Beauté bar level sparkle metallic on the lids. But for a beautiful everyday sparkly eye, I think this is so pretty. And I like that we started with something dramatic to see like if we could get something dramatic without it getting like so muddied up. And I'm just so happy with this. You guys will have to let me know what you think of this look. But let's get on to the second look. And I think we all know we need to dig into the green. Back for look number 2. I'm a little bit nervous because I definitely do want to reach into the green today, but I do have to work today. We're off to work right after this. So hopefully we can create something that I still feel confident wearing to work. But I think for today's look, jumping over to this side of the palette, I'm gonna dip into this middle matte shade first, which looks like, again, just another beautiful kind of one shadow in your crease and you're good to go. While yesterday's look had more of like that dusty pink, which I think, especially like for my skin tone, I do, when I'm not self-tan, have more of a fair complexion. Although I love my browns so much, sometimes I do think like a dusty pink matches my complexion a little bit better. This shade is also beautiful. I went in with a little bit smaller fluffy brush maybe than I should have to start though. Okay, just grabbing a bit of a fluffier brush to help kind of diffuse that shade up into the crease. Should I zoom you in a little bit more? Oh, this shade is actually kind of blending out maybe a little bit darker than I had anticipated that it would. It could be because I started with that smaller, more densely packed brush. But I think I'm going to take a little bit of this shade right here and use that to just soften the edge a little bit. I don't know if I said, but I did set my eyes again using the Ulta Beauty Matte Longwear Eyeshadow Primer. And I feel like I didn't perfectly blend that primer today, but it is what it is. We're just gonna let it be. Okay. I do think that shade is really beautiful. I feel like it diffuses nicely. I'm gonna try and do the exact same thing on this eye. So I'm starting with that smaller brush just to try and make sure we match the blend. I will say this lighter shade definitely has some kick up, but that's okay. Hopefully we don't get a lot for fallout today though, because again, I'm literally headed right to work. I think I'm gonna go in with the slightly smaller brush and add just a little bit more. I feel like I don't have like a perfect blend on like the inner part of my eye here. So just gonna add a little bit more and spend maybe just a little bit more time blending there. I will say though, I do feel like these mattes are blending a lot nicer just overall than I remember in that original palette that I had. Okay, perfect. Then I might regret this because again, we're off to work, but I am gonna go in with this darker brown matte shade. Take a little bit of that, really tap that out and just take a little bit of that on the outer edge just to build a little bit of depth. See how that blends into the browns, or the brown I should say. I thought about taking this one, which is obviously slightly darker than this, but I thought this has a little bit more of a rosy finish. So I don't know. That's why I opted to go with the dark brown again. And then I'll just dip back into this shade to blend that out. I'm again kind of curious, does that dark brown blend away really into nothing? And I kind of feel like it, maybe not. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh. But it definitely softens it quite a bit to just blend over it with that matte shade. Oh yeah, that kind of, I mean, it's definitely there, but it definitely takes a lot of that pigmentation away. So maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, depending on how you like to deepen your looks. I'm gonna bring that in just a little bit more. This is what happens when I go to work. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring it in just a little bit more. It's not deep enough. And then I like look in the car mirror and I'm like, whoa girl, are we going to work or are we going to the club? I'm never going to the club actually. Sports bar maybe. Okay, there's those blended together. I don't think I'm loving the way that that dark brown blends into the lighter brown as much as I liked it yesterday. The more pinky tone, I feel like it looks maybe slightly patchy today. And maybe I just don't love the shade that like is created when the two, like it's fine. It's fine. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. Yeah, I definitely would not say it's my favorite. And I do feel like those two blended together look just, I don't know. Maybe it's in my mind, but in my mind I'm like, do they look patchy? Not necessarily on this side. I don't. And this side I feel like sometimes is trickier for me when I'm blending, but I don't think it's my favorite two eyeshadows blended together that I've ever blended together. I'm going a little bit in with a little bit more of that lightest shade just to, again, kind of soften the edge. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, I'm curious what this, before we go in with the like green, I'm just curious. I haven't swatched these yet. Obviously, you guys will have seen swatches because I'll insert it in the intro. Ooh, the green feels so much smoother. That does look really pretty. Okay, I am excited for this. I am gonna take my NYX glitter glue as I always do, and I'm just gonna lay that across the lid just to get a little bit more, just to let it adhere a little bit more, or hopefully last longer since I am going to work. I'm gonna take it almost all the way across because I anticipate I will take that green almost all the way to the outer part of the lid. All right, taking this green right here, the brighter green, on a flat brush. I'm using I think it's a MAC 242, but most of the numbers are worn off. Okay, that is really pretty. That is such a pretty green, especially for someone maybe that like likes green, but likes green more in like a day-to-day capacity. I think that is actually so pretty on the lids. And it's like impactful, but it's so sparkly. And it's coming across as like a smooth sparkle. Ooh, I like that a lot. That is really sparkly and really pretty. Okay, I feel like the sparkle in this is definitely giving like perfect for holiday vibes too. Do you feel like, actually I'm wondering if I'm gonna take a little bit more of that purple metallic. I'm just gonna tap that on the very outer part of the lid here where like the green meets the darker matte, just to try and like soften that a little bit, maybe. Maybe that isn't going the best together. I feel like if I layer a little bit more of the green on top, it'll hopefully kind of mesh everything together. Yeah, I feel like that's fine. I kind of want to add, actually I think I want to add a little bit of this shade down here. I'm going to take that just on my pinky. That feels like such a smooth shade. I'm just going to tap a little bit of that onto the inner corner and see what that does. Ooh, I just feel like that adds a little bit more sparkle and almost makes it like a little bit more of like a golden green there. Okay, that's so pretty and so sparkly. I'm actually really loving this. Same thing on the other eye. To be honest, I know that I am like an indie girl at heart, but I feel like the sparkle that this green shade is giving is like giving something more than just like mainstream Sephora. Like this actually is like special in my opinion. It almost feels like I feel like sparkle that's like dancing across your lid is how I would describe it. And I will remind you guys, I thought I was going to be utterly disappointed by this palette. Just tapping a little bit of green over that purple and then taking a little bit more of that gold. It's kind of reminding me of an almost like upgraded version of the green from the Bronze Seduction palette. Maybe not an upgraded version, but like it's kind of giving the same vibes, but maybe this one's like a little bit darker. I am gonna go in with a liquid liner on the waterline again, but I'm gonna go in with a brown today instead of a black. And I'm gonna use my Fenty Beauty Fly Liner in the shade In Big Truffle. So it still adds a little bit of like depth to the upper lash line without being like as dramatic as a black. I am noticing like a bit of sparkle on my face, but that honestly doesn't bother me. For my waterline today, I'm going in with my Ilia eyeliner in the shade Dusk, just a dark brown. I kind of want to take a little bit more of the green and just like tap it a little bit, very lightly, but bring it up just a bit. Yes, we're gonna be so sparkly for the office today, but I have a feeling they're gonna love it. But it is really quite sparkly. I don't want to do anything super bold on the lower lash line, so I am just going to take this mid-toned matte shade and I'm just going to buff that out on the lower lash line. And I feel like that does tie it together perfectly. Oh, my eyes feel like extra creasy here today. And now I'm thinking about it, and I definitely did not put concealer on at all today. Wow. Wow, I definitely didn't put concealer on at all. I totally missed that step. I just foundationed and then powdered. My bad. Oh well, is what it is. I think for the inner corner, I'm actually gonna go in with this shade right here, which is kind of like that sequined matte shade for something just like a little bit kind of lighter in the inner corner. I don't necessarily know that that's working as an inner corner highlight, almost because it's too much of my skin tone. Like it's a little bit lighter, but it's not like a white. Okay, and then I'm just gonna add mascara and we'll be good. Oh shoot, I zoomed you guys out before I showed you. Okay, this is the final second look and I love this. Like I feel so pretty in this. I think this is, like I really, really like this. Do I think maybe I could have skipped the like metallic purple on the outer corner? Yes, but I'm so pleased with this. And I added just a little bit of, I obviously added a little bit of lip gloss, but we've done it, you guys. We've done 2 looks with the new with the new Etherealized palette, the Nature palette from Makeup by Mario. And I have to say, I am like feeling utterly shocked by this. I fully intended to buy this, went into this with the assumption I was going to hate this. It was going to be exactly like my first experience with the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes, and I fully thought that this would be something that I would do my review video on, continue to test, and then in my end of year palette ranking, this would rank really low, and then I would end up decluttering this. That's honestly what I thought would happen. I thought my sister was gonna be getting this, but Hannah, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I think I might keep this one. I am just like, I'm really pleased. And granted, I only did, within each look, I only blended 2 matte shadows together. But to get a look that I feel pretty in, I honestly feel like 2 matte shadows is like really all I needed. I would be curious if I owned the Ethereal Eyes still, has the way that I've done my makeup changed, or has the quality improved? I personally feel like the quality has improved, because I just remember the first palette being so chalky, and just like even one shadow and the way that the like sparkly shadows layered over top, like I definitely feel like there has been improvement in the sparkly shadows. I feel like other people trying this that have had all the palettes maybe feel differently, but I feel like the sparkle, especially in the 2 shades we used for today's look, it's just so sparkly. It feels like the sparkles are literally dancing across my lids. I love the way that this look turned out. It feels like elevated, yet still just like so pretty. And I'm so happy about this. I also feel like this is something that I could see myself reaching into a lot for just like one matte shadow in my crease. I've been talking a lot about how I've been definitely simplifying my makeup, especially when I'm going to work. And oftentimes I am just wearing like one matte in my crease. Sometimes I'll pop on one of my Rowan cream shadows, but that is it. And this is a palette that I could see getting a lot of use in that way. So I'm actually so glad that I ended up purchasing this. I'm very excited to continue to reach into this, play with this, and I'll be very curious by the end of the year to see where this one ranks. But you guys will have to let me know if you have picked up any of the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes and what your thoughts have been, what your experience have been. Did you pick this one up? Are you thinking about it? I know $69 is a heavy price, although I feel like in today's day and age, like it seems just like a common price for a palette, unfortunately. But the Sephora sale is coming up, so if these are your tones, or if you're someone that's like really into a more like natural eye, but like you like a pop of green from time to time, I honestly don't feel like you'd be disappointed in this, especially if you are someone who likes something sparkly on the lid. I think the difference between this and like indie shadows that I'm thinking of is like indie has either like a really dramatic shift to it sometimes, or they're really metallic, or they have that hollow finish. This definitely feels more like sparkly, like it has that sparkly ethereal finish as opposed to being like a straight metallic. And I am like honestly so here for it, so here for it. I am shocked to be ending this video saying that I am so happy that I bought this. Especially I watched a couple of reviews and I was messaging with a couple of people that were like, oh, I heard that like the shimmers in here were a disappointment. To me, these are not a disappointment. And the feeling of the shimmers, especially like these two, the feeling of these two to the touch were kind of almost like that smooth, almost wet feeling formula. Like they felt just very luxe to the touch. So I'm so happy I bought this, you guys. I really am. I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to know if you liked the looks, if the looks aren't really for you. Let a girl know in the comments below. But other than that, that is going to wrap it up for today's palette review video. As always, if there's other things you would like me to include in my palette reviews, let me know. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to watch and for supporting me and my channel, as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.